Hi, I'm Allison Gerhardt. The grade level of my lesson plan is grade 3, and the Kansas College and Career Ready standard for this lesson plan is K1 domain, number and operations, fractions. The cluster is develop understanding of fractions as numbers, and the standard is number 1, understand a fraction 1 over b as the quantity formed by one part when a whole is partitioned into b equal parts, and understand a fraction a over b as the quantity formed by a parts of size 1 over b. For my objective, my content knowledge objective is the students will explore the meanings of fractions and compare fractions in a gardening context using a geoboard. So for my activity from the H.O.T kit, I chose to do Gordon's Garden from page 59. Right about there, we can kind of see it. It's a 3-page lesson plan that is recommended for grades 3 through 6, and I adapted it more toward grade 3 because that is the grade that I am interning in. My internship is being conducted in. The children's book I chose for this activity is called Icebergs and Glaciers by Seymour Simon, and the manipulatives that are recommended for this activity are geoboards and rubber bands. So for my activity itself, what I would begin with is ask our 3 essential questions using the SIAP strategies. Who can recall what a geoboard is? Who can demonstrate the difference between whole numbers and fractions? And looking at these 2 fractions, and obviously demonstrating 2 fractions, choose which one you think is larger and write it on your whiteboard. So additional materials I wrote down for this activity that are not provided in the H.O.T kit are overhead projector and overhead with a geoboard, whiteboards, so when we do the essential questions, the students would have whiteboards, and dry erase markers. Additionally, an activity sheet, and pencils, and a final assessment paper. So the procedures that I would go through for this lesson, I have divided up into 6 steps. So I would begin by making the figure that is pictured on page 59 of our H.O.T kit. And let's see if I can get this in the right place. And if at all possible, I would do this on the overhead projector or on a smart board, something visual that is big enough for students to see wherever they're sitting in the room. And I would have students copy it on their own geoboards with rubber bands. Some options for not using rubber bands if that doesn't work with your classroom, if you don't have enough geoboards for everybody. Students could also use this activity sheet and a pencil and map it out as you show them. A third option would be perhaps at a computer station with an online manipulative. There are lots of geoboards out there for manipulatives online. I would then ask the question, if this shows 3 distinct sections of a vegetable garden with the largest part planted in tomatoes and the equal parts planted in corns and beans, what fraction of the garden would be planted in each vegetable? So that would be a whole group activity using manipulatives. Then second, I would present the following problem to students. Gordon has hired you to plant a garden on a 4x4 plot of land. You can model the garden on your geoboard by thinking of each square as having a peg in each corner. And as I would say that question, I would hold up a geoboard or demonstrate on the overhead geoboard how each peg could be considered a corner and how that constitutes a square unit on a geoboard. Then number 3, explain to students that Gordon wants to plant tomatoes, corn, and beans. The garden is to be planted the following way. Plant less than half of the garden in corn, plant twice as much land in tomatoes as corn, and plant the rest in beans. Then build 2 or more gardens on your geoboard and sketch your results on Gordon's garden activities sheet. So at this point, we're moving away from whole group activity and transitioning into individual seat work activity and using an activity sheet that students will actually write on. This could also be a small group activity. It does not have to be individual, which I go on to say in number 4. In pairs or small groups, explore some of the various ways to show 1/2 equals 1/4 plus 1/4 on a geoboard. So then, after that is finished, I would conclude the lesson, provide a closure, and administer the assessment activity. The assessment activity that I chose to use for this lesson plan template is, looks like this, and on one side it has the Gordon's Garden activity sheet geoboards to demonstrate 2 or more. And then, as the second part of the assessment, I would ask that the students do the following. They would write in complete sentences and think about what they would say to Gordon, and write a letter to Gordon describing the garden that the students suggest. Since they have 2 options, they can write both or one, either way, at least one. So, and the letter should explain why this would be the best arrangement for the garden. Then for number 6 in the procedures, I have reteach and enrichment activities, which I'm kind of running out of time here, so I do have those all written out using SIOP, doing group responses with a whiteboard, small group activity, and a couple other activities are listed as well from our resources. I think I'm going to make sure I covered everything here. I think that's it. Thank you so much. I did forget to mention the assessment checklist. How will I assess students? I would make a rubric where students would get a check mark if they included tomatoes, corn, and beans in their garden sketch, 1 check for each. And then in their letter to Gordon, they would need a greeting, a description of the garden, and why this arrangement is the best in their opinion. So the rubric would be check marks, try to make it so it shows, for a total of 6 points possible. Thanks.